And frankly, if we didn't do business, we would have been better off. Okay, you understand that?
Build, shipping container on top of shipping container, maybe 5 piled high, 5, somewhere around 5. I don't really know. Could be less, but a lot. And it's covered from one end of the yard to the other.
Port of Los Angeles. Again, this is in real time. You can go look on Vessel Tracker right now. Everything that's a cargo ship is docked and nothing is coming in and out.
In the first week of May 2025, cargo traffic at America's busiest port complex, the twin ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, plunged by an alarming 44% compared to the same time last year. But this isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. This is about people. This is about livelihoods. The collapse in cargo flow has dealt a harsh blow to one of the country's most essential economic lifelines. For thousands of dock workers, it's meant long hours waiting in union halls, hoping to hear their names called for a shift. More and more, that call never comes. According to the International Longshore and Warehouse Union, ILWU, the number of daily active dock workers has dropped from over 9,000 to around 5,500, a 40% plunge in labor demand. Week after week, thousands of work slots are simply erased. The reason? A sweeping wave of new import tariffs introduced by the Trump administration earlier this year, including a 145% tariff on Chinese goods and the elimination of de minimis rules, which once allowed low-value imports to enter the country tariff-free. The impact has been swift and punishing. Shipping lines are pulling back. Retailers are postponing orders. Containers that once streamed in non-stop are now rerouted, delayed, or simply never arrive. And when America's ports slow to a crawl, the ripple effects are felt far and wide. Jobs disappear, prices inch higher. For families who depend on those ports to make a living, the dock workers, truckers, warehouse staff, the abstract world of international trade policy becomes painfully real. Every idle crane, every empty dock, every shift that doesn't get filled is a reminder. When the ports stop moving, so do the lives that depend on them. Every morning at the International Longshore and Warehouse Union Local 13 Union Hall in Southern California, hundreds of dock workers show up, not to start work, but to wait. They wait for their names to be called, for a chance at a shift, a paycheck, a piece of normalcy. For many, the waiting ends in silence. No work, no pay, no certainty about what tomorrow will bring. The ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, long hailed as the beating heart of U.S. trade, aren't just entry points for cargo. They're lifelines for thousands of families. For the workers who unload the world's goods, these ports pay the rent, cover healthcare premiums, keep college dreams alive, and offer a fragile sense of economic security. But that lifeline is fraying fast. Since sweeping tariff hikes took effect in early 2025, the number of available shifts has plummeted. According to union representatives and reports from NBC Los Angeles and FreightWaves, thousands of jobs have effectively been frozen. Daily assignments have dropped by 30 to 40%. Active dock worker numbers have fallen from over 9,000 in 2024 to just around 5,500 by mid-2025, a staggering 40% drop that echoes the steep decline in cargo volume. Work slots are being canceled en masse. Every day has become a survival lottery, said a spokesperson from the International Longshore and Warehouse Union. But these aren't just jobs. They're anchors in an increasingly unstable economy. A canceled shift can mean more than just lost wages. It can mean falling behind on the mortgage, skipping a needed doctor's visit, or pulling a child out of daycare because there's no paycheck to cover the cost. This crisis is revealing what many have long known. For millions of American workers, especially those tied to the rhythms of global trade, the safety net is paper thin. With container traffic down over 40%, there simply aren't enough ships, goods, or hours to go around. And every container that doesn't arrive at the dock isn't just a missed delivery. It's a missed chance, a shift that never happened, a dinner not paid for, a day that begins and ends in uncertainty.
The Port of Los Angeles and the Port of Long Beach aren't just the largest in the United States. Together, they are the pulsing heart of a vast economic ecosystem that touches nearly every corner of American life. These two ports handle close to 40% of all containerized imports into the country. In California alone, they support over 136,000 direct jobs. Stretch that out across warehousing, trucking, rail, retail, and the wider logistics web, and the number swells to more than 1.4 million jobs nationwide. This isn't just commerce, it's survival. Port officials have often explained it in a way that makes the stakes painfully clear. Every 4 containers that move through these ports represent 1 American job. It's a simple equation. But when the containers stop coming, the consequences aren't abstract. They're immediate. They're personal, and that's exactly what's happening now. Since the start of May 2025, cargo volume at the Los Angeles Long Beach port complex has plummeted by over 40%. That collapse isn't hidden in spreadsheets or delayed in quarterly reports. It's visible in shuttered warehouse doors, in long lines at union halls, in truck yards growing quiet. The International Longshore and Warehouse Union, ILWU, has issued stark warnings. Thousands of dock workers are on indefinite standby. Some shifts are gone temporarily, others may never return. These are not expendable or peripheral roles. These are foundational jobs in what has long been one of America's final bastions of industrial labor power. What's unfolding now isn't just a slowdown in global trade. It's the slow-motion unwinding of a regional economy that took decades to build and just months to destabilize. The collapse doesn't stop at the docks. It cascades outward, to the truckers idling without loads, the warehouse workers clocking shorter hours, the retailers holding back inventory orders, and eventually to consumers facing higher prices and longer waits. The 2025 tariff surge, which included steep levies on Chinese goods and the rollback of key import exemptions, is no longer a policy debate. It's a daily crisis playing out in real time. Just a year ago, the Twin Ports welcomed around 100 container ships a week. By May 2025, that number had shrunk to roughly 65, a 35% decline. Every vessel that doesn't dock means fewer containers, fewer hours, fewer paychecks. The ripple effect is brutal, and at its core are the workers. The men and women who've long kept this artery of global commerce alive, now left waiting, watching, and wondering what comes next. In 2024, an estimated 9,000 to 10,000 dock workers reported for duty each day at the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. But since the implementation of sweeping tariffs in early 2025, that number has plunged to between 5,000 and 6,000 daily, a sharp 40% drop in labor demand. One of the clearest indicators of this downturn comes from union reports. Thousands of work shifts are being canceled every week. What used to be a reliable, stable rotation of assignments has devolved into unpredictability and disruption. Before this trade crisis, cancellations were rare and usually tied to weather or short-term logistical hiccups. Now, entire rosters are being wiped out, leaving skilled workers, many with families to support, waiting at home or in union halls with no guarantee of income. These aren't temporary fluctuations. They're signs of deeper systemic shockwaves, tremors shaking the foundation of a port-centered economy. And the epicenter of the collapse, analysts agree, lies in a series of aggressive and unilateral trade policies enacted by the Trump administration in early 2025. At the heart of the crisis is a sweeping set of import tariffs, including a staggering 145% levy on goods from China, along with additional tariffs ranging from 10% to 25% on imports from key U.S. allies like the European Union, Canada, and others. These measures were imposed without coordination with international partners or consultation with industry leaders. And their impact was swift, widespread, and destabilizing. Further compounding the disruption was the repeal of the de minimis rule, which previously allowed low-value imports under $800 to enter the U.S. tax-free. With that exemption gone, even small consumer items are now subject to steep tariffs, driving up import costs across nearly every sector. Retailers, e-commerce platforms, and logistics firms have reacted by slashing orders, delaying shipments, or rerouting supply chains entirely. Facing mounting uncertainty and higher costs, many businesses are shifting cargo flows to ports in Canada and Mexico, bypassing the U.S. altogether. Others are stockpiling goods offshore or diverting freight through Southeast Asia and Europe, effectively draining the cargo volume that once made Southern California a global logistics powerhouse. What's unfolding at the Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach isn't just a decline in shipping activity. It's a transformation. And not the kind driven by innovation, but by policy decisions made far from the docks, with consequences landing squarely on the shoulders of America's working class. The result is impossible to ignore. A policy meant to protect American industry is now unraveling the very infrastructure that keeps it alive. If protection means losing ports, losing jobs, and losing paychecks, then who exactly is being protected? That question, posed by a union representative in Long Beach, has become the defining tension of America's 2025 trade crisis. Tariffs aren't just economic tools. For dock workers, there's something far more real. A hot meal on the table, rent that gets paid, a child who stays in college. When trade policy is crafted without accounting for those everyday realities, the consequences aren't theoretical. They're personal, they're immediate, and in many cases, they're irreversible. The Trump administration's aggressive tariff strategy was sold as a bold move to restore American manufacturing and rebalance global trade. But for those working the front lines of the supply chain, the results have been far from revitalizing. Instead, the policies have destabilized vital infrastructure, slashed freight volumes, and put tens of thousands of blue-collar jobs at risk, all without delivering clear gains to the industries they claim to protect. Now, container ships are rerouting around Southern California. Union halls are packed with workers waiting for shifts that never come. And a deeper truth is surfacing. No trade policy operates in a vacuum. The United States is teetering on the edge of its worst logistics crisis since the 2008 financial collapse, not because of foreign threats, but because of domestic miscalculations. So the question hangs in the air. Are we truly safeguarding our national interests, or are we sacrificing them at the docks? A container ship from a distance looks like just steel, fuel, and cargo. But behind every vessel are human lives. People who unload, haul, stack, and move the goods that fuel the economy. When those ships stop coming, the impact ripples far beyond the waterfront. Neighborhoods lose income, cities lose tax revenue, families lose their sense of stability, and a nation that once built its strength on openness, mobility, trade, and labor begins to come apart, quietly from the edges inward. Trade policy isn't a boardroom strategy or a political talking point. It's a contract with real people, and in 2025, that contract is under more strain than ever. As America reckons with the fallout of its own choices, we're left with a sobering question. What exactly did we gain? And what did we trade away to get it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the stories behind the headlines. And until next time, take care of yourself. Thanks for watching.